Venezuela should be rich. Instead, it collapsed. The country with the largest oil reserves on earth was brought to its knees, not by nature, by politics, by power. Now, suddenly, Venezuela is back in the spotlight. President Donald Trump says the oil can return. Fast, 18 months. It sounds bold, confident, almost heroic, but behind closed doors, the story is very different. America's top energy executives are not celebrating. They are calculating, they are bracing themselves, not for Venezuela, for Trump. They are asking one question: how do you say yes without promising billions? How do you offer oil without rebuilding a broken nation? This is not really a story about energy. It is a story about power and its limits. If you want to understand how global decisions are actually made, stay with me, because before anything can move forward, we must understand the real problem. And that is where this story truly begins. At first glance, this looks simple. Venezuela as oil. America needs supply. So why wait? But the real issue is not underground. It is above ground. Oil does not flow because a president wants it to. It flows when systems work, when laws are clear, when contracts are protected, when money feels safe. Trump sees a shortcut: lift the country, restart the pumps, claim a win. Energy executives see something else: risk, uncertainty, and a system still half broken. They know Venezuela's output can rise, not dramatically, not overnight. A few 100,000 barrels a day is possible, but only under conditions: sanctions relief, security, supplies for heavy crude. This is where expectations begin to diverge. Politics demands speed. Markets demand structure. And when those two collide, tension follows. To understand why this tension exists, we need to go backward. Back to how Venezuela fell this far in the first place. To understand Venezuela today, we have to rewind the clock. Before 1999, Venezuela was an oil powerhouse. More than 3 million barrels a day, a core supplier to global markets. Then came Hugo Chavez. Oil stopped being just an industry. It became a political weapon, a tool for control, a source of cash for the state. Investment slowed, expertise left, infrastructure aged. Over time, the system hollowed out. When Nicolas Maduro took over, the damage accelerated. Mismanagement deepened, corruption spread, sanctions followed. By the time Maduro was captured, production had collapsed to around 1 million barrels a day. Pipelines still existed, refineries still stood, but the system no longer functioned. Oil fields need constant care, technology, parts, skilled labor. Without them, output does not just decline. It breaks. This is the cycle Venezuela fell into. Political control replaced economic logic. Short-term power destroyed long-term capacity. And that history matters, because it explains why fixing Venezuela is not a switch you flip. It is a system you rebuild. And rebuilding systems always creates crisis moments. The first one is about to appear. The first crisis is not in Venezuela. It is in Washington. Friday's White House meeting is approaching fast. And the pressure is building. President Trump is expected to push hard, very hard. He believes the industry is ready to invest, ready to rebuild, ready to move fast. But the executives walking into that room know something he does not want to hear. They are not ready. In private, they are scrambling, coordinating talking points, comparing risks, planning how to avoid promises. Some consider hiding behind antitrust rules. Others look for softer language, carefully measured commitments. Yes, but. That is the strategy. One executive compared the meeting to dodgeball. Trump will throw demands. They will try to duck. This moment matters. Because what happens in that room will shape expectations If promises are forced too early, the backlash will come later. This is the first collision: politics versus capital, speed versus reality. And it sets the stage for what comes next. Because behind this crisis lies a deeper mechanism, one that explains why oil giants hesitate. Here is the mechanism most people miss. Big oil companies do not fear oil. They fear uncertainty. Exxon and Conoco do not think in months. They think in decades. To invest billions, they need guarantees, rule of law, security, stable politics, clear ownership. Venezuela offers none of that yet. Sanctions still distort every decision. Contracts can be reversed. Laws can change overnight. So the industry breaks the recovery into phases. Phase one is modest. Increase output by a few 100,000 barrels a day. Use existing infrastructure. Limit exposure. That is why sanctions relief matters so much. Without it, even small gains are blocked. Phase two is the real prize. Returning to full production. More than 3 million barrels a day. But that phase demands tens of billions of dollars. And more than a decade of work. No executive will sign that check based on political enthusiasm alone. This is not defiance. It is discipline. And that discipline creates the next tension. Because if big companies wait, who moves first? The second crisis is already unfolding. It is smaller companies, independent players, private equity firms. They are watching Venezuela closely. They see opportunity where others see risk. These are the players willing to take chances. The wildcatters, they don't need the same guarantees as big oil. They don't need stable governments or clear laws. They can operate in chaos. They are driven by potential reward, not by certainty. And right now, Venezuela is a giant risk, but it's also a giant opportunity. Private equity firms are already calling. They want in. They want to explore. They understand the system is broken, but they also know they can work around it, fix what's working, expand where possible. The big oil companies might wait, but the smaller players are hungry. This is where the real disruption lies. Smaller companies could act faster than giants. They might pave the way for larger investment later. They could unlock Venezuela's potential in ways no one expects. And that creates a new dynamic, one where the future may not be shaped by the giants, but by the small players willing to take the leap. What does this mean for the people of Venezuela? The ones who live through these crises every day. The impact on the ground is not about oil prices. It's about survival. For them, this isn't a game of politics. It's life and death. People have been living in poverty for years. Basic goods are scarce. Healthcare is collapsing. The infrastructure is crumbling. Oil could change that. But it won't happen overnight. For Venezuela's citizens, any promise of oil growth brings hope. But it also raises expectations. When those expectations aren't met, the consequences are severe. Oil companies are not just businesses. They are symbols of hope or failure. If they return, they bring with them the chance of recovery. But they also bring the weight of their promises. If oil output increases, the streets may improve. But if it does not, the suffering will continue. This is where the story turns human. It's not just about numbers and barrels. It's about the lives that depend on those barrels. And that is where the real challenge lies. The global impact of Venezuela's oil revival is impossible to ignore. It's not just about a country or a continent. It's about the world. Energy is the lifeblood of modern economies. What happens in Venezuela ripples outward to oil markets, to geopolitics, to global trade. Venezuela's oil output could reshape energy markets. But more importantly, it could shift the balance of power. In a world increasingly divided by influence, the US could use Venezuela's oil as leverage. An energy-rich country could fuel political gains. It could drive alliances, but there is more at play here than just control over resources. The question is, Who will hold the key to Venezuela's recovery? The US has been active in shaping the narrative, but Russia and China are not far behind. Both are looking for opportunities. Both are watching closely. A successful US intervention in Venezuela's oil sector would not only impact global supply, it could also set the stage for a new chapter in international relations. Whoever controls Venezuela's oil will have significant influence over global markets. And that is why the stakes are so high. The consequences of failure are not limited to the country itself. They reach far beyond its borders. This is the true scale of the crisis. What happens next? What is the future of Venezuela's oil? There are three possible outcomes, three possible roads we could take. The first scenario is the best case outcome. Venezuela stabilizes politically, the sanctions are lifted, the oil flows freely, the industry invests billions, oil output skyrockets. This could restore Venezuela to its former glory. It would take time, but the results would be transformative. New jobs, a rebuilt infrastructure, a stronger economy. The second scenario is the middle ground. Some oil flows, sanctions are partially lifted. The US gets some of what it wants, but not all. Venezuela limps along. Output increases, but slowly. Political stability remains fragile. Investment trickles in, but not enough to rebuild fully. The people get some relief, but not enough. Venezuela remains a work in progress. The third scenario is the worst case. Nothing improves, sanctions stay in place, political chaos deepens. The oil industry doesn't invest, Venezuela continues to a spiral. The people suffer. The country remains stuck in the past. Three scenarios, three potential futures, but the truth is, no one knows which one we'll see. What we do know is that Venezuela's future will depend on the balance of power. It will depend on whether political will can align with economic reality. And that alignment will determine the fate of Venezuela's oil and of its people. The future of Venezuela's oil is not just about barrels. It's about what we learn from this crisis. What happens when a country rich in resources can't unlock its potential? What happens when power and profit collide? What happens when politics is faster than economics? Venezuela shows us that even the world's largest oil reserves aren't enough to guarantee success. They are just a promise, a hope. To unlock that promise, we need something more than just oil. We need a system. We need stability. We need trust. This is a global lesson, a reminder that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. And sometimes, the most important decisions are the hardest ones to make. So, as we watch Venezuela's future unfold, ask yourself this: what are we really fighting for? This story is far from over, and the lessons it holds will echo for years to come.